Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. We are here to do the Clash in Paris reactions video for the PLE. It took place yesterday, August 31st, 2025, in Paris, France, with a north of 30,000 crowd, which was a lot bigger than I thought. On the predictions video, I mentioned a bunch of low expectations, keeping it low for what very much to me felt like a B level pay per view. So yeah, let's go ahead and hit all the matches per usual in the order in which they occurred, and see if this pay per view hit kind of our expectations exactly in that below average tier, or maybe we got a little better than what we expected. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into what the match that led off the night, which was of course Bronson Reed taking on Roman Reigns. Um, this was a long one, and I want to say, in terms of length, after the entrances, after the match, which I think in itself took about 30 minutes, and then the effects and happenings after the match, which around another 30 minutes. So if I recall correctly, this was about an hour of now what was a or a six match card. So this was an interesting start to Clash in Paris, but I think hit on all the right notes. And I think in terms of what we kind of talked about in the predictions video, I think kind of delivered exactly what we thought it should. KP, you want to tell us if this match kind of lived up to your expectations? Do you think all those right notes were hit? And what were your thoughts on the match overall, rating, and anything else you feel the need to mention for this one?
Okay, so yeah, I think ultimately when it comes down to this match, you had two things that you needed to hit here. You needed to make Roman Reigns, come out victorious. I think that was ultimately, the best case scenario really for these two. And secondly, you had to make Bronson Reed look really, really strong. I think with Division recently, Bron Breakker's had a lot of the spotlight, besides Seth Rollins being the world champion. I think it's been sort of Seth as number one, Bron number two, and then Bronson Reed number three. No disrespect to Bronson Reed, but I just think that he's sort of gone a little bit second fiddle to Bron Breakker in that sort of like secondary role in the group. And with this match, I think that this was the absolute perfect way to make Bronson look extremely tough and just extremely strong. And they did exactly that. So throughout the course of the contest, it was no easy victory for Roman Reigns. Like you said, it probably was about a near enough like half-hour match. It took quite a long time. So that obviously shows, the toughness of Bronson Reed himself to go toe to toe with Roman Reigns, someone as good as he is. Yeah, for such a long period of time, it was a really, really fun matchup between both men. It was heavy hitting. There was a lot going on, and then with Roman getting the victory in the end, and obviously with the shoes and the Shula Fala, whatever you want to call it, with the whole introduction of Bron Breakker coming on in to hit a big spear. Then having, both of them essentially just absolutely destroy Roman Reigns at the end. Although Bronson Reed lost the match, he didn't lose any credit because of that. I think he looked absolutely phenomenal throughout the entirety. And I think, the main thing that people are going to talk about after this is how Bronson and Bron absolutely, utterly annihilated Roman Reigns post-match. So, yeah, that's what the Vision will want, and that's what they've got. So, yeah, it was a really, really good start to the show. You had obviously Paul Heyman as well in there, taking a guillotine from Roman Reigns right at the very just after the match had ended. It had everything, At the end of the day, with this matchup, nobody in the contest was actually in the arena for the remainder of the show, because obviously afterwards we had Adam Pearce, just absolutely furious with Bronson Reed and Bron Breakker for taking out Roman so viciously that he ejected them from the arena. So that if they came back, if he even smelt them, then he would suspend them both without pay. So not a single one of these guys that were involved in this matchup actually stayed in the arena. Roman, taken to the hospital, as was Paul Heyman apparently. So yeah, it was just a bit of a crazy opening contest, but it was the right way. It set the tone, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Bronson looked great. Roman Reigns got the win. I got no complaints for this one. I gave it an 8 out of 10. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I think you hit pretty much all the points that I had. I think in the predictions video, I mentioned I would love to see a Bronson Reed win. And I think you could still argue that maybe that could have worked. Well, obviously it could have worked and would have certainly shot Bronson's, credibility up. But I think if we're not going to get that Bronson win, I think this is the next best thing. I'd say he controlled probably 75% of the match. Roman's victory even kind of felt like he had to rally a bit there at the end. So I think that in itself is a huge win, even though it's not technically in the win column for Bronson Reed. I think after this, he comes away looking even more so, as you mentioned, moving up. I wouldn't say moving up the order, but moving up in terms of I do see him as a future threat, very much so. But yeah, the match itself, nothing groundbreaking, but I think a statement from Bronson, even though he didn't actually get the win. And then, of course, everything that came after was, I think, bigger than the match itself, obviously. Roman getting back that Shula Fala, choking out Paul Heyman, getting that long overdue, from Mania at this point, which is crazy that it'd been that long. And then Braun taking out Roman as he's throwing out the shoes to the crowd after he signs them. I thought that was a great moment. And then Bronson re-hitting the tsunami while Roman is pinned down to a stretcher. That's brutal. I can't recall how many. I think it was like three or four. And then obviously got a couple of spears from Braun. So and it's funny enough, I mentioned in the predictions video as well. I said if we are going to let Roman win, maybe after the fact, have the Vision do the Vision things, take out Roman Reigns, because I wasn't sure if because Roman mentioned he had big things in store for this year and next year, so I didn't know if that meant initially, because obviously he's very much a part-time star these days, or if we could use his part-time status, elevate the Vision, knock him off TV for a while, and it appears that's exactly what we got. So in terms of anything I could expect and anything we could do to kind of build up the Vision, and more on that later. Yeah, I thought this hit all the right notes for me. For the match itself, could because of the after match kind of happenings, I don't think I rated it quite as high as if I were to put it all in a whole. But I did give the match itself a 7 out of 10. I thought this was a pretty good way to start off Clash in Paris. So, with that, getting on to the next match, we have the Street Profits going up against Joe Gacy and Dexter Loomis of the Wyatt Six, and some Borderlands gear and entrance from the Street Profits. So if you are a fan of that kind of, I don't want to call it selling out, but it is a bit. And obviously the Street Profits wearing gear that they normally wouldn't do. But yeah, I thought that's a nice little added bonus there. Lots of communication issues to start off the match and a few during the match, and Wade and Cole really hit on that, especially at the beginning and a bit during it as well. It's crazy because we hadn't seen any of that between the Street Profits since I think Dawkins had been injured. I think was kind of the end of that, and then timeline's a bit fuzzy, but it's been a while. And then obviously Montez kind of went on a little singles run there for a bit, and the timeline's a bit fuzzy. But it's been a long time since we've had any of that kind of mention that potentially could break up the Street Profits. But it felt like Uncle Howdy kind of message to them beforehand really kind of got in their head. So it'll be interesting to see if that gets hit on anymore, especially after the loss here. But KP, what were your thoughts on this match? Obviously, this was very kind of last minute with the Street Profits kind of winning that number one contenders just 2 nights before. What were your thoughts on the match overall here, and then obviously the heavy involvement from the rest of the Wyatt Six members?
Yeah, definitely a late last minute addition to the match card. As you said, literally this past Friday on SmackDown. I'm not sure whether this was, maybe a replacement match for that of what could have been Naomi and Stephanie Vicaire. Or maybe that was Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella, that obviously we're going to be talking about a little bit later on as well. But it did feel like it was a little bit sort of like last minute when it sort of like came about. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know how that exactly went down. But regardless of that fact, yeah, Street Profits with the sudden, lack of chemistry or just teasing, maybe a little bit of discourse within the group, within the tag team. I don't know how I feel about it, to be honest. It sort of like seemingly just come out of nowhere. There was no signs or anything. There was no build up to that particularly happening. It was just suddenly the Wyatts calling them out with like basically zero evidence, and then suddenly they're not really hitting the same as they normally do. So I don't know. This whole thing just seems really rushed. If we are going to go down this route with the Street Profits, I'm not against it, but I just think that there's been absolutely no like signs of this happening, and now suddenly we're all talking about it. The commentators are talking about it. I don't know. I'm not really buying it at the moment. And regarding the matchup itself, like I was saying a moment ago, whether it was a last minute addition or not to the card, I think it sort of translated to that during the matchup as well. Because normally Street Profits matches are really, really good, and I absolutely love them as a tag team. The Wyatts have been pretty decent since coming back as well. They've added something to the tag team division. I know I was skeptical at first, but they seem to sort of like steady the ship. But with this match, it didn't really hit that hard for me. I thought it was a little bit disappointing. I didn't think it was as top tier as I think these guys can all sort of produce. And that's got nothing to do with how it worked out in the end with the interferences, with Nikki Cross obviously holding the foot of Montez Ford, allowing Uncle Howdy to hit Sister Abigail, and then the Wyatts getting the win literally seconds after that. Yeah, I don't know. It wasn't the cleanest of matches from both teams, and I've never really got to a point where I was like, "Oh my god, like this is getting really good now." I think it just sort of stayed at a level where it was like, yeah, it was a decent tag team match. It probably was one that you would see on maybe like a Raw or a SmackDown each week. And I wouldn't really hype it up any more than that, to be honest, which is a little disappointing because I know how good these two teams can be. But yeah, it just didn't hit for me. I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. I think it could have been a lot better, and it's not memorable. That's the problem. So if it literally is just because this is the start of the Street Profits discourse between the two of them, then okay, fair enough. We'll see what happens, in a couple of months down the line or whatever. Maybe we'll talk about it then. But yeah, I don't know. I don't think we will come back to this. I think it's just a match. They filled in on the card, and yeah, they did it because they needed something else. That's all I got to say about it, really. What about you, though?
Yeah, for me, I think definitely probably suffered from an adjustment in terms of length. I think that at least that's the first thing that hit my head was after the hour long first match and segment. I think they were probably concerned with how long this card was going to be. And so I think this one did suffer from that. Yeah, I wasn't as skeptical of the Wyatt Six being in the tag match at first, but I will say I think a lot of what they do is very much all storytelling because when it comes to in ring, I've never been super big on what they are putting out there, at least to date. Um, Obviously the timeline has been very kind of all over the place too, so that doesn't help. That kind of messes with their one thing they're very good at is that storytelling. So yeah, I love Dexter Loomis. Not as big of a fan as Gacy though. But yeah, I think part of it too is I didn't think there was a chance in hell that the Street Profits were going to win those titles back. So I think that definitely played a part in it too. The match itself was fine enough. But then, yeah, I too agree with you on the bit about the lack of chemistry all of a sudden. If that is kind of what we're playing up the White Six, specifically Uncle Howdy, and the mind games that they can cause, because obviously we've seen a bit of that with the Miz and Mello as well, but that was kind of already there, but it's definitely ramped up from the Wyatt Six. So maybe that's just kind of their mantra. They get in your head before they face you. And so if that continues to be a trend, then I think maybe we'll look back on this and maybe Street Profits go back to acting normal when they're not around the Wyatt Six. Like I like that if it is going to be that deep, but it does feel like it was kind of just all of a sudden very very pivoted last moment. So as for the rating itself. Yeah, I gave this one a 6 out of 10. Just yeah, as you said, Raw and SmackDown quality almost as a little bit bigger, but I don't know how much of that was attributed to the crowd itself. So yeah, not a bad match, just nothing special, as you kind of said. So with that, moving on to the next match, and this is gonna be negative. Just a heads up. I'm sure most of us have already kind of had that mindset in our head, and if you've kind of been looking through your typical wrestling websites and all that, this match is being very heavily critiqued, and especially to that of Nikki Bella, unfortunately. Whether you like her or not, that's unfortunately, I think that's the reason this match is getting hit the way it is. Yeah, I just gonna let you kind of get your thoughts out first, KP, and then I won't repeat anything. But yeah, Becky Lynch retains here against Nikki Bella in I think a match that maybe we could argue shouldn't have been put on here or ever happened. What are your thoughts on the match as a whole, and kind of just let us know what you're thinking. Even the crowd, which has been hot all night, really struggled with this one and ended up booing Nikki Bella during the match. So curious to get your thoughts on this one, KP.
So yeah, you funnily enough, you just touched on my opening point. Becky Lynch being the heel and Nikki Bella being the face in this contest, you would naturally think that, you know, Nikki's going to get all the cheers and Becky's going to get probably a bit of a mixed reception because after all, it is Becky Lynch. So you wouldn't expect all boos for her. But it was very much a case of Becky just got cheered basically the entirety of the contest, and Nikki essentially got booed. So that tells you kind of the story to begin with. But as to why Nikki was being booed, I mean, I can't tell you from the very, very, very opening moments, but possibly into the late stages I could. It was rough. It was a tough watch, this one. I wasn't particularly interested or like hyped up for this matchup going into it anyway. I like Becky. I think she's, you know, she's great, but Nikki Bella in 2025 having a singles match against, you know, someone as talented as Becky and not having a good match, I think just tells the story in this one. I don't mind Nikki as such, but it was clear as day that she just couldn't she couldn't go in the ring. And like you said, this crowd was absolutely hot all evening. They were insane. They were nuts, but they didn't massively care for this contest. So that again, that tells you part of it. There were a fair few botches throughout the contest as well. There was one specifically where there was like an enziguri from the corner from Nikki. It's almost like a springboard type maneuver, and she goes for it. And she gets absolutely nowhere near Becky. Becky's got to try and sell something and just doesn't really help out the situation either. So I guess you could sort of put that maybe down on both, but obviously, you know, it looked terrible. But yeah, there was a real lack of chemistry. Like there was no real sort of links between the two of them as to be able to produce a decent matchup, which is such a shame because the IC title has been, you know, we've spoken very fondly of it over the last few months about how well it's been booked and how well it's been featured with its feuds and whatnot. And then we go from that to Becky against Nikki Bella, which I guess probably is maybe it's a dream match for Becky. Deep down, she wanted to face Nikki. Maybe that's what this stems to. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is, but it didn't work, and yeah, it was a tough watch, unfortunately. I don't want to like dwell too much on the matchup because there were some really good contests throughout this show, but this was by far the lowest point of the night. And I did give it a 5 out of 10, which I think is maybe a little generous, but just I don't know. It it did nothing for me. Like there's nothing that I think I take from this either. Like yeah, sure, Becky beats Nikki, her run continues. Nikki realistically, does she get another opportunity? She was pinned 1, 2, 3. It was a roll up, but it was fair. It was clean. There was no like holding of the tights, or there was no dirty antics from Becky Lynch. So as far as I'm concerned, this is over. This is done. It's dead in the water, and we got a really bad match out of it. Maybe it was a dream match, like I said for Becky, but I don't know. Is that the only consolation here that could be taken out of this one? Nobody will ever know because will Becky actually say that? I doubt it very much. But yeah, it it didn't fit. It didn't work. It was lackluster, and yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to go too much into it, but yeah, just a disappointment, a big disappointment.
And that's exactly what we hit on the predictions video. I think the predictions segment for this match was under 2 minutes because what is there really to say about this? It feels very forced. It feels like we came from the Lyra, which obviously I've made very clear that I thought she should have won it back in the first place. But I'm also happy with long-term storytelling. So if there is a bigger picture, which Bailey obviously working on a new thing there as well. I'm sure she'll come into play here, but it just felt very fill gappy insanity to me, just to have Nikki here in the first place. And it came out of nowhere. You know, she wanted to come back, make a run or whatever, fine. But to insert her immediately into the women's IC scene, and that's kind of and this isn't geared towards Nikki particularly. I said the same thing when Trish came back, but Trish was able to hold her own in the ring much better than Nikki. And I think comparing the two is very much a weird thing to do in the first place. But I don't want part time. I say the same thing to other people on the men's side. I don't want them to come back and take a spot of someone who's worked hard all year. So it's not on Nikki in particular, but it is especially now in this case when you come back, take the spot, and then have a performance like that. And Wade Barrett and Michael Cole, especially Wade, was selling the fact that insecurity off the top ropes. He said, "quote That did not come close whatsoever." Wade Barrett, the announcer for WWE, said that about that. So I think that's just kind of a testament to how this match went. Wade also hit on the fact that this isn't the Divas era anymore, and that's kind of that kind of was ringing through my head the entire time. What you were successful at one point, but this isn't that. This is very much an elevated division in the women's division that we have now, comparatively speaking. And no hate to anyone that was around during that time, but that was a while ago. So to have her come back and get entered into the scene, have her come back and fight someone else that isn't for a title. I think that would have done wonders. But I think it's fair to say after seeing this match that you get put up against one of the most consistent in my eyes women in the women's division, that is Becky Lynch, and can't come up with a good match with her even. I think it's probably best that maybe we do an off and outside of the ring, maybe a managerial thing. I think she's great at a lot of other things, but in ring, she's just never really been it for me. But yeah, I think that's about all I'm going to do. I think Nikki is great at selling. I will say that. But when it comes to dishing out offense, I think it feels like half the time she's off point. I think she gave out about 100 forearms during this thing, just because she didn't know what else to do. And then I don't typically look for this. The only person I've ever really, really seen obviously do this is John Cena in his matches. I think he yells out instructions a lot and he gets caught doing it. And especially from the live crowds, I've seen a bunch of mentions of that. But I saw a lot of Becky here talking, and I think Wade actually sold it as talking trash. But there was a lot of times when the camera caught Becky telling Nikki what to do next. And even with all that, this is still what we got. So yeah, we probably could go on about this longer, but I think we've kind of hit all the main points here. Hopefully, as you said, hopefully this is the end of it. Let's move on. There are tons of other women that I think are more worthy. I think that's fair to say. But yeah, I gave this one a 4 out of 10. So I do not give out those ratings very often, but this one just kind of felt like that, and it feels bad for Becky, but I think she kind of did the best with what she had. So let's swiftly move on because this was definitely the lowest point of the night, and let's go ahead and hit the rest of the card, which very much elevated my feelings after that last match. We then have Rusev versus Sheamus in the good old fashioned Donnybrook match. I have been gushing over this. I've been wanting this for quite some time. So let's talk about this one. Let's get that sour taste out of our mouth. I set up some lofty expectations. I thought that this match could not only be match of the night, but I also said it could be a match of the year contender. KP, how did you like this one, and what was your rating? And did the right person come out of this winning? I see a lot of controversy, kind of discussions talking about this online. Do you think the right person came out of this on top?
Can only describe this match with one word, right? And it's cliche for a Sheamus match, but it's absolutely appropriate. It was a banger, absolutely, right? I think this was probably my favorite match of the night, just for everything that went down during it. We've had a couple of really good matches between the two men on Raw over the last, couple of months, I think it's been. And yeah, we wanted like a really big sort of, explosive contest between both men where literally anything goes. And this is exactly what we got. Good old fashioned Donnybrook. It definitely lived up to the hype that I think it was hoping to do so. Uh, I don't have a problem with Rusev winning. I think I was torn about who I thought was going to win this matchup. Even like up until the last like few minutes just before the show started, I was thinking that it could really be either Rusev or Sheamus. Like I don't think it really did anybody a disservice to lose this one. I think that no matter who won, it would have been fine, and no matter who lost, it would have been fine. So yeah, regardless of the winner, I think this one was gonna be great for both men. Just an opportunity to absolutely destroy each other and to put on a really good contest, and that's exactly what they did. It was a lot of fun from start to finish. There was so much involved throughout the matchup. I think there were some really really good moments, especially with false finishes. I think there was a false finish where Sheamus hits a bro kick. This is just after probably about a minute or two after the table's been put through, which is ironically in the photo above there. You can just see Rusev with the accolade on Sheamus on the barrels. Just after that, Sheamus gets Rusev on the shoulders, hits a white noise through the tables, and then pops him in the ring. And then moments later, it's sort of like a anime sort of finish to a big fight where like two guys are going to go for a big thing at the same time. Rusev's got a shillelagh. He goes to try and strike Sheamus, but Sheamus hits a big bro kick. And I thought that was going to be it. I thought that was going to be the match over. It was done and dusted. But in the end, actually, Rusev was able to kick out of that, and it was a really good false finish. There's not many times where I'll be watching a matchup nowadays, especially where somebody hits a finishing move, and I genuinely think, oh, this is over, and then it's not. So that was really nice to witness, to be fair. But I think it was a really good call them doing that because it adds like a little bit of suspense in there, and yeah, definitely a shock moment as well. And there are people in the crowd that were sharing the same shock levels as myself during that moment, which is always good to see. But yeah, Rusev after that one, they both go at it again. There's a match kick in there. There's an accolade, and then you've got the shillelagh with the accolade then to end the contest. But the way he sort of like talks Sheamus back, sort of like changes the trajectory of the accolade, the different position for it. I quite liked it. It was different. It was unique, and I guess it's effective because Sheamus tapped out pretty quickly, and he's a big guy. He's tough as nails. So I think Michael Cole said that it was only the second time he's physically tapped out in his WWE career, which is quite the stat. He made it very clear he doesn't mean passing out, just physically tapping. So yeah, obviously it takes a hell of a lot to tap out Sheamus. So yeah, Rusev with an unbelievable performance here, as did Sheamus. I really, really had a great time watching it. I think these old-fashioned Donnybrook matches, they have everything. They got bars, going through them, tables. I mean, doing an accolade on barrels was crazy. Shillelaghs, kendo sticks, steel chairs. Just quickly off the top of my head, things I can name there. Yeah, there was a whole lot involved here, and it was a wonderful matchup between both men. I gave it a 9.5 out of 10. It was my match of the night, and yeah, just had so much fun watching it. It was great to see these two just completely go at it. And as to what's next for them, I don't know. I think maybe a little bit of mutual respect. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think for a minute it's going to be like, for example, Cesaro and Sheamus with the bar or anything. I don't think it's going to be like that. But maybe just Sheamus loves to have a fight, and that's exactly what Rusev gave him. And at the end of the day, Sheamus is quite respectful to those who completely go hell leather against him and come out on top. So maybe there's a little bit of mutual respect from both men. But we'll see what happens down the line. As to whether Rusev will show that back, I don't know. But great match. Had a great time watching it, and yeah, thoroughly enjoyed it.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that has seen the bar fantasy booking, bar 2.0, if you will. Because yeah, I for one would love that. I love the original bar. I thought they were massively underrated. Obviously it helps, when you love Cesaro, and I love Rusev almost and maybe even more than I did. I love Cesaro. But yeah, I for one would love that booking, and I think putting these two guys together would be a force to be reckoned with. I think that's fair to say. Yeah, you hit on most of the points that I think I had in general. I set some really lofty expectations for this one, and it somehow lived up to them. I thought the spots were brutal. It was very slow burn at first, and this isn't typically a kind of match that I like. I typically like the faster paced matches, but this one between the chemistry kind of hit on that earlier as well. The chemistry these two have, the ability to sell by both men, and the false finishes. Man, that bro kick was Oh, that was Rusev kind of putting his very much almost felt like a knee-jerk reaction at the very like the 2.99 when he got that up. That had me on the edge of my seat from there out. And then yeah, as you mentioned, uh, Sheamus tapping out for only the second time in his career. If that stat is 100% accurate, which I'm assuming it is, that's insane. And so to build Rusev up, I think this is to me this feels like the first time he is a legitimate threat to the rest of the roster. Up until now, it feels like he's kind of just been back, and then he's just kind of been back. Obviously, the matches with Sheamus have been great, but there hasn't been a clear winner. Now I think we can pull a clear winner from that in Rusev. And again, I wouldn't be mad if they decide to go the bar route. No issues with that whatsoever. But I don't really see Rusev kind of playing that part and that okay, now I respect you. I feel like he's very much the heel in that he would be, confident and he won and he knew he always would. And then that would be that. Sheamus would try to maybe, respect him, but then Rusev would just take him out, and that would be that. Continuing his very heel reaction he's getting from the crowd. So I think Rusev should be elevated into another possible title scene here. I think that's at the very least, I think they are done with this, and I think should move on. But yeah, this was a great contest, and for me also match of the night, and we'll have to come back to it at the end of the year and kind of see where it maybe lines up on match of the year contender. I think it's certainly up there though. I of course no surprise, I'm sure. I did give this one a 10 out of 10. I probably give those out more than I should, but this just had a bit of everything for me. So, yeah, I absolutely love this one. Moving on to the next match, we have John Cena going up against Logan Paul. During the last match, we had the crowd very much get into it at the end, but I think it was very much a brutal enough match that the crowd was just kind of hooked on it and weren't super hot for it. For this match, however, the crowd was super rowdy the entire time. I think a lot of that is probably a testament to John Cena. This as they've been selling, is probably the last time they will see him, at least in an in-ring capacity. And so I think that definitely caused the crowd to do that. But they were insane this entire match, and I think it plays a testament. I think the match itself was very good, but I think the crowd just put it knocks it up a notch. But yeah, in the predictions video, I thought kind of similar to the Roman and Bronson match. I thought Bronson winning that match would have been huge for his career. But I also said for this one, I think Logan Paul winning this would just do volumes for his career, and definitely as Logan Paul is a very heel natured. I thought he could use this as fuel for years to come that he beat John Cena on his retirement tour. Obviously, that wasn't the case, but Dan, this was a good match as well. KP, what are your thoughts on this one? Did this one play out as you thought it should, and what was your overall rating for this one?
So I was a little bit skeptical going into this matchup with Logan Paul being, one of John Cena's, final opponents in his great illustrious career. Obviously, we still got a few people left for him to go up against, maybe like two or three most. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, this was a moment for Logan to be in there with Cena. So I suppose in that sense, it was a pretty cool moment for him, especially. But I think there's so many levels to this matchup. First and foremost, the crowd was unbelievable. The crowd, we know how good the French crowd are, but for this matchup, they just turned it up somehow another level. It was absolutely wild from start to finish. John Cena I think he was the most over he's ever been in his career during this contest, which is saying something, because there have been points where he's been massively over throughout his longevity. But wow, this was crazy, absolutely nuts. It was so much fun to watch as well. The crowd were just having a blast. They were having so much fun. They were enjoying themselves. And I don't think there's a single person in that photo that doesn't have their their hands up there. Like, it is actually quite crazy just to look at quickly. But yeah, regardless of that, the matchup was really fun. Like, I think it was very much a back and forth contest. Both men had so much time to show what they can do. And we saw moves from Cena that, he was just rolling back the years. He was having fun. He was enjoying himself. And he was going down deep into the well. He was doing everything that, that he sort of showcased throughout his years. We saw, Code Res. We even saw a Hurricane Rana from John Cena at one point. Like, that doesn't happen very often from Big Match John. So many attitude adjustments, obviously, as you'd expect. Leg drop off the top rope. It was a lot of vintage Cena, which is ultimately just, just what we want in the last few matches of his career. So it's great to see that he's having such a good time. But Logan Paul also had a really good time. He was really good during the matchup as well. I thought his his commitment to just to helping Cena look so good in this one was really, really top notch from Logan Paul. He doesn't have a bad match. Like, I don't like the guy. I really don't. I'll keep saying that. But in terms of his in-ring performances, it's so difficult to criticize him because he's so consistent. He just does the job, and he does it so well. But yeah, Cena getting the win. I was a little confused as to who I think was going to win this match or going into it. And ultimately went with Cena in the end. But yeah, I'm glad that he got the victory. This is actually his 99th PLE victory in his career, which is second in the all-time list to none other than The Undertaker, who has 108. So safe to say that Cena's not going to beat Undertaker. But yeah, to be one away now from 100 PLE victories, who's to say that he's not going to hit that landmark, in the 3 months we still got left of the year for him, probably 3 events I think it is. So yeah, I think he's going to get that big 100. But this is number 99. It was a really good one. Both men just they pushed themselves to the limits, and I think Cena having a really good match against Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam, and then having this one just shows that he's still capable of putting on top matches against people. So yeah, I had a great time watching it. Just have so much fun with the crowd as well. I gave the matchup an 8.5 out of 10, which yeah, I think is fair. There was a whole lot into it. It was a pretty long match as well. It wasn't a quick thing. It was, if I had to guess, it was probably similar length to that of Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed. Maybe a touch longer, I don't know, but that was a whole massive segment. That's hard to really digest that. But yeah, this was very much a long and very even contest for the majority. No one really had the upper hand throughout the contest. It was very much a case of just move after move after move after move. It was maybe a little bit of a spot fest at times. That's maybe my only little critique, but I don't think it was like anything to really sort of like jeopardize the matchup or like bring it down an awful lot. So yeah, just brilliant. What a match from both men. John Cena with the win. And yeah, we move on to what he said is 8 more appearances. I think he said in the post show after this, which is a shame. We're almost there now, aren't we? But what did you make of it? John Cena's 99th win on a PLE. Was it a good one for yourself?
I haven't watched the post show. It sounds like I need to though, because any more I can give John Cena at this point, which is crazy because I'm not a John Cena guy by default by any means. But this reign or this kind of retirement tour has been a ton of fun. I wasn't a huge fan of the heel stuff, but couldn't argue, what he was doing on the mic, especially. Was entertaining. So yeah, for this match, and the record bit is interesting as well. They haven't hit on that at all, at least that I can recall, in a long time. So for him to have, yeah, I think it's fair to say he will break the 100 mark for sure. But safe to say that I think Taker's is safe for now. Maybe Roman Reigns, but even then, yeah, because Roman Reigns is definitely hitting that part-time status in his career already. It feels like. So yeah, I think his record is safe for now. Yeah, I really enjoyed this one, and this one got a ton of time. I think, and I don't know, I kind of thought about this one a bit too, because a lot of these matches did get a lot more time than I think they normally would have gotten, especially that opening contest. I don't know if this is because for the U.S. folks, if this is the last PLE on Peacock, so they were trying to go out with a bang there, or if this, originally this was only a 5-card match. 5-match card. So I don't know if that was originally playing a part as well, because outside of the Becky, Lynch, Nikki Bella, and the tag match, every match felt like it got plenty of time. And this one, obviously got plenty of time. I think both of these guys are really good at in-ring psychology. Um, Obviously, John Cena has had plenty of practice, but Logan Paul too. Like he's feeding off the crowd. Obviously, it's easy when you have a crowd like this, especially. But even lesser crowds, Logan just feels like he has that kind of sixth sense for how to work them. So yeah, this was great. I mentioned it earlier with the Becky Nikki match, and it's obviously prone to John Cena calling out match spots. I did see a few of those, which does kind of take me out a bit. But again, grasping at straws there at any critique I can find. Yeah, this was great. Seeing John Cena do some of these moves is just crazy. It makes you wonder kind of what he kind of has been holding back all those years, what he could have done. But to see the way he is today, maybe it's best he didn't, in terms of just kind of looking like he's in pain sometimes. But yeah, for the match itself, very similar to the Bronson Reed match in that Logan walks away here looking like $1 million. No, he didn't get the win, but he might as well have. He just walks away. It took all of those stops for John to pull out for him to beat. And yeah, I think that if it wasn't already, I think the future is very bright for Logan Paul, and props to Cena. Because as you kind of mentioned, this was a very much a clash in styles as they are typical contests are. But I thought it worked very well. And I think, yeah, Logan definitely made Cena look good, and vice versa. So I think anything you could ask from this match, I would say it was accomplished. So for me, I gave this one a 9 out of 10. Yeah, it's better than I thought it was going to be, and yeah, everyone walks away looking good for it. Moving on to the main event, we have Seth Rollins defending his World Heavyweight Championship up against the likes of Jey Uso, LA Knight, and CM Punk. Worth noting, Jay was banged up and had bandages over his midsection from the earlier happenings with the Vision. And speaking of the Vision, I know we kind of hit on this a bit already, but the Braun and Bronson were both banned from ringside. So definitely. And then the promo that Seth cut before I thought was fantastic. Basically saying that he is on his own, or at least that's what he wanted us to believe, and I did. I thought that the suspension without pay was definitely going to keep the Braun squad out of the picture. And then Paul Heyman obviously was reported to be at the hospital. So it appeared that Seth was on his own. So a bit more on that perhaps between the two of us. But Seth said if I'm not able to win on my own, maybe I don't deserve the title. So KP, lots to talk about here. What were your thoughts on the overall match itself, and then kind of the latter half? I think is kind of a separate bit as well, and your overall rating for this main event. Was it worthy of the main event? I think that's another discussion point as well.
I had a lot of high hopes going into Clash in Paris for this particular matchup. I think that, when you put the likes of, CM Punk, Seth Rollins, and LA Knight in a match, together, I think is going to be ultimately very, very good. You've even got a little bit of Jey Uso in there as well because, please the fans and whatnot. Yeet. Yeah, I think it was good, but I don't think it was anything special. I think it was fine. Like, there was nothing particularly wrong with it as such, but it wasn't like something that I think we're ever gonna go back and watch again, maybe. Good moment at the end. I mean, with the whole, Vision being, ejected from the arena and whatnot, and not being able to get involved. Bronson Reed and Braun Breaker are obviously referring to. Heyman's obviously out of it because he's in the hospital. Seth's on his own. He's got to figure out a way to get it done by himself. I immediately thought to myself, I was like, whoa, hold on. That means one of two things. Either A, Seth really is going to win it by himself, which I don't know if I'm really thinking that's going to happen, or we're going to get somebody else, coming to the aid of Seth Rollins, somebody maybe fresh and new to the Vision. And then I started to think, well, if we're going to have somebody new coming on in, then who would it be? They've got enough guys as it is, and I literally said, I was like, well, they got to add a woman, right? They got to add a female to the situation into the mix, and who better than Becky Lynch? There's already there's already a link between the two of them. They're literally husband and wife. It just makes the most sense. And then ultimately the match goes down. Punk's looking to get the victory. He's got Seth up for his second GTS he's looking for. But here comes, this masked individual, hooded up, hits a low blow on Punk, and immediately you can tell that it's a woman who's doing it, and I'm like, that's a woman. It's got to be Becky, and it was Becky Lynch. So I don't know, maybe a tad, easy to read, I guess. But I don't think there's anything particularly bad about it. Like, I enjoyed the matchup. It was good. It was a fun watch. I think the dynamic between, the four men was quite interesting. There's that little bit of, like, maybe working together to take out Seth at the beginning, between the three challengers. And then a little bit of, disruption between those three as to, maybe disagreeing about whether they really want to do that, and actually maybe they should turn attention to each other. So I think I'm glad that they sort of, like, played that out a little bit. It's like a little bit of a tease, and then just ultimately went, this is a fatal way after all. We're all in this, for ourselves. Screw you guys, basically. So yeah, I think that was a nice little dynamic of the matchup, and some decent sort of storytelling throughout it. But then yeah, when Seth did the stomp to both Jey Uso on the outside and then to LA Knight, who had just been put through the announce table, of his own merit, he literally dived off and hit an elbow drop, and didn't get the connection. I think it might have been, was it Seth that moved out of the way? I can't remember off the top of my head. It might have even been Punk. But regardless of who it was, they moved out of the way. So he's through the table. Knight gets a stomp as well. Seth goes in looking to stomp Punk, with that steel chair. So, like, putting his head in between the chair and then looking for the stomp. That would have been a nasty stomp, by the way. That would have been crazy. So I'm kind of disappointed that didn't take place, but I do understand why it didn't. But yeah, it was a good match. It was fun to watch, and I think that the four men sort of played off each other really, really well. But it just wasn't anything too incredibly special, and I think it could have been maybe better than what it was. It fell a little bit flat in parts. But yeah, I don't know. I still gave it a good rating. I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. But I think when you look at the Donnybrook match, you look at John Cena and Logan Paul, you look at Roman Reigns and Bronson Reed. I put all of those matches above this one. So, yeah. But I'm looking forward to seeing if Becky is going to be literally a permanent member of the division, or whether it's just a one-time thing to help out her hubby. Considering the rest of the group has just completely left the building. So. Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to be, but looking forward to seeing how it does play out. But yeah, 7.5 out of 10 I think is fair. But yeah, like I said, just nothing ultimately special. But it was a good main event. I don't know what I would have put, because I would have put this as the main event. It's for the world title after all, so it makes sense to be on the last match of the night. But it just wasn't the best match of the night.
Yeah, me personally, I think obviously you're probably not going to put the Donnybrook match as the main event. There's no title on the line. But I think I personally, if hindsight's always 2020. But I think the John Cena Logan Paul match would have been a hell of a last match, sending the crowd home. Very hyped. And I think, speaking of that match, I think this match actually suffered a bit because of the last match. I think not from the crowd per se, but for me as a viewer. Like, how do you top that, especially the match before that one, being the Donnybrook match as well. So two very good matches, and so I think this one just kind of suffered from its position on the card a little bit. Yes, that chair spot with CM Punk would have been brutal. It had me on the edge of my seat thinking, oh man, this is going to be good. But then, yeah, it very much felt like that was a possibility because, as you mentioned, Seth handing out those stomps to the gentleman on the outside of the ring. Speaking of, I feel like LA Knight and Jey Uso, as you mentioned, the dynamic was very interesting in that we're going to help each other, then we're not. Jay kind of came off a bit heelish in that nature because it felt like he was just kind of playing mind games a bit, just handing out super kicks right after doing that. So I think he was very much maybe in a sour mood because of the earlier happenings to Roman, and he was dedicating this match to him. But yeah, definitely more heelish than I think I've seen Jay in a long time for this one. But maybe nothing will come of that. We'll see. But LA Knight, I think I was kind of hoping would come out of this. with another shot at Seth somehow. Because as mentioned on the predictions video, it feels like he very much got screwed out of this match that should have been with Seth. But obviously, I think walking away from this, the main focal points are still Seth and CM Punk. So I hope you like that story because it appears that it is going to be the way. Maybe Punk has a partner coming to help him with Becky and Seth. I think a lot of people have been clamoring for that for what feels like almost as long as they've been clamoring for Punk to come back to WWE, which a lot of people thought that was impossible. So we'll have to wait and see. Yeah, you were way ahead of the game, KP. I did not. I thought Seth was going to just, and I kind of wanted him to. I kind of wanted Seth to just win the match clean, which I know is crazy for a match involving division, but I did kind of want Seth to just win clean because we forget Seth is one of the best, guys in the business, and is, very talented, obviously. But yeah, I'm okay with this too. Obviously, in terms of storytelling, this does a ton. I didn't think they were going to do this. I know we made a whole video on when the Vision first formed, if they would ever add a woman, and obviously Becky Lynch was a member we talked about, but it had kind of that ship had kind of sailed. Obviously, she's busy with the IC scene, so I kind of thought that was not going to happen. So this was a surprise to me. But yeah, I like the moment. I don't know if that means this is a permanent. She's now a part of the Vision. If so, good luck getting that IC title off her. If she has assistance from the rest of the Vision and Paul Heyman, very much could be a struggle to get that title off of her. But yeah, I think you hit it perfectly. I think this was a good match, but I think kind of suffered from the where it was on the card and didn't have a ton to remember outside of kind of the last 5 minutes there, and the post match picture as seen there. Becky and Seth is a great moment. I think that's an iconic moment, honestly. But it'll be interesting to see kind of where they take this, and I'm very interested and intrigued in where they take it from here. But yeah, a pretty good PLE, honestly. This one, like I said, I had very low expectations for. I think this one is fair to say definitely outlived those expectations. KP, what was your kind of rating as an overall, and did this pay-per-view kind of exceed your expectations as well?
I think that it was an awkward one to read looking at the card itself because the matches didn't look particularly like special for the majority of them. I think some of them looked good, some of them looked a bit meh, and then some of them did look really enticing. So I think there's a bit of a mix there between general feelings and vibes going into it. But I think at the end of the day, the show was a pretty decent watch. Like I quite liked it. It wasn't all great because we did have the Becky Lynch and Nikki Bella match, unfortunately, which didn't really hit as hard as you wanted it to. Same for me goes not quite as much, but still in the same conversation. The Street Profits and the Wyatts didn't think was particularly great either. But then, yeah, I think the other matches were all decent and above. So, yeah, I think, 4/2, I think, in favor is a majority. So I think I can take that as a positive and a win. But with my overall rating, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. Just like that's what the average of my overalls come to. So yeah, I got no complaints massively, really. I think that at the end of the day, we had an absolute barn stormer with the old fashion Dolly Rip match. So had so much fun watching that. Cena with one of the biggest pops and reactions and receptions, and just unbelievable crowd producing that as well. Yeah, there were some really good moments on this show. Bronson Reed maybe to be looking like an absolute star as well. Carnage in the Vision. Yeah, it had a lot. It had a lot going on. So I think there's definitely more positives than cons, which is obviously what you want from a show. And yeah, I think naturally now we go on to what's next. We're building towards WrestlePalooza, which again I just think is a really terrible name. I know it's an ECW thing, but it just sounds so bad. But hey, hopefully the show is going to be better than what the name dictates. But yeah, that's our next stop, and obviously bits and bobs in between that as well. That's just the next big PLE for WWE. But yeah, I mean, hey, look, Becky with a vision. That's ultimately my take from this one. What's going to happen there? Is it going to be permanent? Is it a one-time thing? That's where my head is. What's your biggest talking point, and how did you rate the show, Nick?
Well, I think in terms of calling this a B level pay-per-view, which I very much did. And I said in the predictions video, I said, keep your expectations low. Anything we get is better than that. And this far, outweighed that. And I think when you think of a B-level pay-per-view, you think, well, this isn't really worth my time. To say that about this would be completely ignorant. There's tons of talking points coming away from this, and this whole pay per view felt like very much must see. And I think a lot of when you get dubbed a B level pay per view, you think, well, there wasn't anything interesting on there, nothing. I didn't walk away with any talking points, and this was very much the opposite. So for me, I averaged at 7.5, but I'm bumping it up to an 8 because of all those huge talking points. Obviously, Bronson getting built up, Logan getting built up, and then obviously the man here joining Seth. Those are all huge. Those three alone are huge. And you take out the Nikki and Becky match, and obviously, like you said, very different on a different scale, but the Street Profits wouldn't hit quite as good as it should have. But you take out even one of those in the Becky match, your average shoots way up. So yeah, this was definitely better than the expectations I had set for it, and I think that's just was the safe approach going into this. But yeah, I thought this was a ton of fun, and maybe looking back on it, one of the better PLEs of the year. So for me, I think this was definitely a success. And one of our biggest things we always talk about on the push is things, stories being built, and looking forward to what's next to come. And I think that's fair to say this Clash in Paris event did exactly that. But yeah, KP said it best. Or sorry, I give out? Yeah, I did give out my ratings. But KP said it best. We do have WrestlePalooza coming up, and we also have a Worlds Collide, and I believe that is not this Friday, but the Friday after. So the first one that we did was very enjoyable, and we won't do a predictions video for that. I think we'll just do a reactions video for it. But that's very much a couple events to look forward to. But yeah, I think this was a ton of fun, and I walked away enjoying myself. So I think that's the main takeaway there. But with that, if you agree with everything we put out here or disagree, please let us know in the comments below. And as always, we appreciate those likes and subs as well. Um, yeah, before that, we'll be back shortly with that Raw recap and NXT recap this week. But this is it for now. And this has been another episode of The Push with Nick and KP. And until next time, we'll see you then. Take care.